Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Lucas from No Code Buffs, and today we're going to be tackling something that every mobile app needs, but many builders struggle with it, which is a fully responsive header. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to build a professional header that is 100% responsive with logo placement, navigation, and even make it stickier for the best user experience possible. Now, here on my screen, we can see a header that I've built for my community No Code Buffs. And as the screen shrinks or gets closer to a mobile width, we can see how the menu items disappear. And we can now see a hamburger menu, right? So we have the menu items here, which is essentially what a mobile user would see. And then if we extend out to see a desktop view, we can see that the hamburger menu hides and then the menu items show again. And so there's a few different reasons why this is so important to have on your web application. The first one being that nowadays over 60% of web traffic comes from mobile phones. And so if your header breaks on mobile, you're potentially losing more than half of your clients, and that's no good for your business. Your header is also the first thing that the user sees when they come into your application. And so a clean and responsive header builds trust immediately, and a broken one makes users bounce. And the third point is that navigation is crucial for any web app. And so on desktop, you might have 7 to 8 menu items that can be displayed in the menu. And on mobile, we essentially need a different approach, like a hamburger menu. And here's the thing, Bubble gives us flexibility to create responsive designs, but you need to understand the right approach. So that's what we're covering today. All right, so let's get building. Okay, so we're finally here in the Bubble editor on a brand new project, and I'm gonna walk you guys step by step on how I would create this responsive header. So let's start by creating a reusable element. So we're able to place our header in multiple pages of our application. And now inside the reusable header, let's increase the default builder width so we can see our header on full size. And let's make it min height and max height of 70. So essentially 70 pixels should be a good standard height for a web app header. And let's also place a group inside this header, which will be our main group, okay? So let's rename main group here, and let's remove the height to content so it fills in our entire header. And I would also want to include a left and right padding. So I would do 24 pixels here. And then we essentially can place a conditional here as well that we can do later in the video if we want to reduce the amount of padding on the mobile screens. Okay, so sometimes you want to place like a 32 pixels padding for desktop, but then as the screen shrinks, then you might have left too much space on each side, and so we can place a condition to reduce that on mobile, but we can take a look at this in a later module of the video. So now we have our header here. Let's make the container alignment centered as well. So all the elements that we place in our header will be centered in the middle, okay? Now, what I want to do now is to place a few elements here on my header. On the left side, I want to have a logo. On the middle, I want to have my menu items. And on the right, I want to have perhaps a login and sign up button, along with the hamburger menu that will appear when our screen is smaller than a certain width, okay? So let's start with the logo. So let's find an image here. And let's select the logo that we have. I've created this logo just for this tutorial. So it's a fictitious company, so it needs workspace. And what we want to do is to keep the aspect ratio fixed. And then we can also do a fixed width for this one as well. And maybe type here 250. Should be a good size for a logo. Perfect. And now I want to create my menu items here in the middle. And I think the most efficient way to create these items here are using option sets. And through option sets, we can also set up variables in each menu item that could hold the page name that it will take the user to, for example, that will help us on the workflow, the navigation workflows. And we can also set up another variable for logged in users and logged out users in case you want to show different menu items for logged in and logged out headers, right? So we can also play around with these settings and make sure that we have a single reusable element that we can use both for logged in users and logged out users. And that would be a very efficient way to create this in Bubble. So let's take a look at how we can set up these menu items as option sets. Let's click here on the data tab and let's go to option sets. Let's skip the tutorial and we can create a new option set, maybe called menu items. And we can place options here such as home, about us, blogs, contact, and then here are the attributes that we can set. Okay, so we can have, for example, page name, which will be a text. We can have another variable logged in, for example, which can be yes or no. And then we can have a few items here for logged in users as well, just as an example, such as profile, settings, and then let's do another page like resources, for example. And then now we can configure each option with its attributes. So home, for example, logged in, let's say no, and then page name, let's do index. So when the user clicks home, I want to go to the main page, which is index in Bubble. About us, let's do logged in no, and then the page name will be about us. Logged in no for blogs, and then the page name will be blogs. For contact, the same thing, so let's do logged in no, and then contact. Now for profile, let's do logged in yes, and then profile. For settings, logged in yes, let's do settings. And then the last one, resources. So let's do logged in yes, and then resources. Okay, so now we have our menu configured. Let's go back to the editor and see how we can place these items here. And so what I'm gonna do is to find a repeating group. Okay, and so I'll place this repeating group here in the header. I forgot to make this main group layout as a row, so that way we can see our items side by side. Okay, and so let's click here on the logo. Let's make a vertical alignment to the center, in this reusable group as well. What I want to do is to have just one row, and then I don't want to have them in height. Maybe let's do like 30, just show it displays, and also vertical lines to the center. So I'm just adjusting here these elements so everything's on the center of the header. And I want to place these items here to the middle. Let's see what we need to do now. So the type of content, the data source here will be the option set menu items, and then the data source will be all the menu items, right? So we want to display all of them. But here's the catch. So if we display all of them, we will see all the logged in and logged out items. And so what we want to do here is essentially place a filter and find only the menu items where this menu item logged in is equal to no. Okay, so this will be essentially displaying the menu items for non-logged out, for logged out users, and then for logged in users, we can essentially place a condition here that says, you know, when current user is logged in, we want to display these items, but the menu item logged in must be yes. Okay, so this way we'll be able to show different items here, depending if the user is logged in or logged out. So now let me place a text in this repeating group that will essentially be the current sales menu items display, which will be the name of the option set. And let me set up some paddings for this items as well, so we can see how we can add a hover state, or how we can highlight this menu item when the user is on a certain page, for example. Okay, so let's do top 6, bottom 6, left and right 12 pixels. Okay, so that should be good. And so let's also place separator between these items. Okay, so what I want to do here is to maybe place a width of 8, and then on the color let's do 0%. So we have a transparent separator. You'll see how this looks just in a second. And now we can essentially visualize this already. So let's try to see how this looks. So let me go to the index page and let's place the header reusable element, and let's visualize how this looks like. Keep in mind I haven't created any accounts for this. Okay, so we can only see the home. So let's go back to the editor and see how we can fix this. So if we click on our repeating group, we can see that we have a fixed number of rows, which is 1. This is correct, but then we also have a fixed number of columns, which is incorrect. We shouldn't set this variable if we want to have multiple items here that we don't necessarily know or wants to set a fixed amount of columns. Okay, so the min width of the column, let's do 0. This will essentially fit the column to the item inside, and then now we can try to display this again and see all the menu items that we have. Okay, so we have home, about us, blogs, and contact. Perfect. So these are all the items that we expect to see on a logged out user. Okay, now let's start by placing the buttons to the right side. So I basically want to have a login and a sign up button side by side. Okay, so let's place our first button here. Let's make it last element. Let's make it center aligned, and then this should be login. And then let's copy and paste this button again to create a log out button. And let me make this second button an outline button. Okay, so let's do blue for font color and border. Okay, so we have 2 different buttons here. One's a primary button, one's a secondary button. And now we can essentially group these elements into row containers, fit width to height, and then place some gap spacing between them. So let's do maybe like 12 between these buttons. And now we can see that all our elements are left aligned. So essentially what we want to do here is to click on our main group, and let's change the container alignment from left to space around. So no, maybe space between. Okay, so if we click on space between, we can see how we've reached the layout that we were looking for, right? So let's visualize this again and see what we get. Okay, so basically 2 buttons here, elements here in the middle, and then our logo to the left. Perfect. Now what we can also do is to place a border here on the bottom of our header, just so we're able to differentiate the header from our page. So let's do style bottom, and then okay, we have a line here to the bottom. Okay, and the last thing I want to do here is to make sure that my menu items are functional, and I expect the menu item to highlight or differentiate itself whenever it's hovered, whenever it is on the certain page that it refers to. And we also obviously need to make sure that when the user clicks on the menu, we go to the page that it is referring to. Okay, so I went ahead just to make sure that the video isn't too long, and I've created these different pages for the menus, right? So we have the About Us page, and I've also placed the header here. We have the blogs, we have context, we have resources. Okay, and so what we want to do here is to place a conditional first on the text element inside the repeating group, and we want to say something like when this text is hovered, or when the current cell's menu item page name is equal to the current page name. We want the background to be solid or a flat color. We want the background color to be light gray, perhaps, okay, just so it differentiates itself. And now we can place a workflow as well, that we can go, that's navigation workflow to another page, and we can set up a dynamic page here. So this is why it's important to have the page name here as an attribute of the option set. So we can essentially write the expression of current sales menu item page name. Okay, so you can see how this is a very efficient way to do things, as we're only setting up a single workflow for all of our menu items. Okay, so this is the only workflow we have for them. Whereas if you have like 5 different buttons or 5 different texts here on the menu item, we need to create 5 different workflows. And so this is a very efficient way to do things. So I expect this to be working. Whenever we click, we should be able to go to another page, and it should be highlighted as well as when hovered. So let's take a look at the preview to see how this works out. Okay, so we are on blogs here, and so blogs is highlighted. So if we hover, we can see the page is highlighting, and if we click on one of them, we should change pages here. We can see that through the URL. So this seems to be working, and we also have the line here separating the header with the page itself. So I believe we're good to start working on the responsiveness of this. So let's jump into the responsive tab here. Now we can see how we have different settings here that we could click, and we can also hold this to shrink the page or extend it, and we can see how the elements behave on the page, right? So normally whenever we have a menu, there is a certain width of the page where the menu items will start to overlap with the buttons or even the logo, and so we need to avoid this. And one thing here that we need to make sure is that whenever the menu items will disappear, our hamburger menu appears, right? And so this has to be handled at the same time. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, so how do we know the exact width that we need to be able to make this transition? Okay, so we can go here to the preview, and we can right click on your mouse and do inspect, right? So we're going to be opening this, so you might not be used to a lot of code, but this is just HTML and CSS of the page, or whatever bubble lets the browser to see of their code. And here, this is a really good setting to a really good tool, so you can able to see how your mobile view looks like, and you can see how this is currently looking like. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily overlap, like I said, but the elements essentially they move to a second line when there's not enough space, and so we need to avoid this. Okay, so we can see here that as we shrink, there's a certain point where the elements start to shift. Okay, and this will vary, of course, to how many items you have in your menu, right? If you have just one item compared to 8 items, the width of the page where the element starts to get weird will be different. Okay, so for my case, I have here a width of 804. Okay, you see, if I go to 802, for example, it's no good. So 804 is my number for this one. So I'm going to stick to 110. 810. So I think that's a good number for us to play around with here. So what I want to do first is something like this. I want to place another condition here on this repeating group, which contains my menu items. And I want to say something like, whenever the current page width is smaller or equal to 810 pixels, I want to hide this group, and I want to make sure that it's hidden when it's collapsed, right? So this must be checked. Okay, so now we will essentially have a different behavior here, where if we go below 810, the menu disappears. Okay, and so whenever this disappears, I want to show the hamburger menu. So let's work on this. Okay, so let's go to the builder again, and let's place an icon next to the buttons, and let's make sure that our buttons and our menu, our icon, are in the same group. Okay, this is because whenever we use this container alignment here, space between in this group, we want to make sure that we have 3 elements only. So we have a couple of elements to each side and then 1 element centered. You see that if we have like more elements here, we don't get this behavior that we're looking for. So we have essentially now a group that contains our icon, which will be our hamburger icon, and we also have another group which contains the button login and the button logout. Okay, so these groups are very important to be together as well, just for the fact that we can use this header for logged in and logged out, remember? And so at some points you might want to hide these buttons and then display the user profile if we're working with the logged in header. Okay, but that can come later. So let's make sure we have a gap spacing between these elements. Let's do 24, and let me try to find a hamburger menu here. Let's see if I can quickly find this. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is good enough. So reorder 4, I'm using a iconic logo. And so initially this logo, it should not be seen on the page, right? So this should be hidden, but then whenever the current page is, the current page width is bigger or equal than 850, okay? 810, that's the number that we're using. Sorry, if it's smaller than 810, then this should be visible. Okay, so when our menu items hide, okay, should not be visible, our hamburger menu shows. So let's see if that's working out for us. Okay, perfect. And so if we extend out, menu items are here, hamburger menu is not, and then menu items disappear, hamburger menu appears. Perfect. So we have the behavior that we were looking for. Now we need to place these menu items as well on the hamburger menu, and there's multiple ways of doing this, but I think I want to create a group focus so we can see how that looks like. So let's do this icon mobile menu, and then let's place a group focus here on the page, and then let's do the reference element, the icon mobile menu. Okay, so let me make that visible for us. Okay, so let me try to place it there. Okay, perfect. So the offset top, let's do 15, maybe a little more, like 20. Offset left, let's do minus 200. Okay, so it's here. Let's try to increase the max width to 500. Let's do a fixed width of 500. Just so we can see what it looks like. And then let's do this 500. Okay, we can adjust. You can adjust however you like this, just to make sure that is, under the hamburger menu and it looks good on the page. But I'll just display this for you and show you how I would do this very quickly. So let's do like a border just so we can differentiate this, and let's place some padding, 24 on each side. And then what we can do here is essentially get this repeating group here that we have set up for the menu items on top, and then we can do a copy special and then copy with workflows, and then we can paste here on this group focus menu items. Okay, so let's do like a paste special, paste with workflows. And then the container layout should be row now. Okay. And now what we want to do here is that we can switch, right? So we want to have unlimited number of rows, okay? But we only want to have one column, okay? So that way we're displaying the menu vertically instead of horizontally, right? And we don't need to fit this with the content. It's perfect. And we don't need to fit the with the content on this text as well. Okay, so let's see if this works out. Now this is the group focus mobile menu. Okay, and now I want to set a condition here as well, that when this group the mobile menu is visible, I want this hamburger menu to switch to an X mark so we can close the mobile menu. Okay, so let's do when the group focus mobile menu is visible. Now the icon should be like an X mark, something like this. This should be fine. Okay, and now the workflow that we will set up here on this hamburger menu is something like toggle the hamburger menu, which is the group focus mobile menu, right? So when it's visible, we want to close it. When it's closed, we want to show it. So let's see if this works out for us. Okay. Okay, so let's visualize the hamburger menu. Now if we click here, we should be able to see the menu, and then we can close this as well. Let's take a look at the editor of why we're not seeing this. But let's take a look. So our repeating group is visible. Okay, so it is visible. Our data source should be equal to the repeating group on the top. Okay, so now we need to remove this condition, right? So the condition here for this repeating group on top is that when the current page width is less than or equal to 810, this should be hidden, but this is not the case for us on this menu, right? So basically, if we remove this conditional, we should be able to see the menu now here. So if we click on the hamburger menu, we see these options, and then if we close it, then we don't see it, right? I don't know why we're not hovering, so let's see why. When this text is hovered, yeah, it should be able to hover this. And then we can change pages the same way. So blogs. Okay. And then home. Perfect. Okay, so I've just realized that it's not hovering because we are on the inspect thing. And so if we actually come here to the normal web page, then we were able to hover these menu items. And I also noticed another thing here, that is the menu items hide, but then at some point this logo is too big, right? So it overlaps, or like it tries to overlap with the login and logout buttons. And so let's see if we can take this one step further. Okay, now what I want to do here is to essentially place conditions here to reduce the heading, to reduce the padding actually, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So in this group here that we have on the header, we've placed the left and right paddings at 24, and I think that when we are on mobile, we can actually have some paddings of 12. Okay, so we can shrink that a little to have a little more space. So let's do when current page width is less or equal than 600. I normally use 600 for a good amount of things. I think it's a good setting to. It is a good point for a transition between like a tablet and a mobile, for example. And so whenever it is less than 600, I want to have the left padding and the right padding equal to 12. And I also want to shrink this logo as well when it's less or equal than 600. So let's do, if it's less or equal than 600, let's do the width is equal to 150. So let's see what we get now in terms of the responsive behavior. And I think it's going to be much better, or Sure. We get to a much better place here, actually. So if we do inspect, we can take a look at different mobile phones, right? So iPhone 14 Pro Max, it fits. iPhone XR, then it starts to get a little, the screen starts to get small, and so this doesn't fit. Now, if we get to a Pixel 7, doesn't fit. If we get to a S20 Ultra, that's big, so iPad should be good. So iPhone SE, the same thing. So let's see what we can do here to improve this a little more. So what I think I can do here as well is to, okay, so one of the options is to put the login and the logout button inside the group focus menu. So that's one option. You know, what I'm gonna do is also to trying to increase this row gap or like column gap in between the login and logout and the hamburger menu. So let's see if that works as well. So when it's less or equal than 600, then the column gap should be, let's do 8, for example. It might look a little small, and we can reduce this row gap, this column gap between these buttons here to 8 as well to see how that looks. So let's see if we get a better optimization for iPhone XR. Okay, there we go. So at 414 pixels, we're good to go. And okay, so this actually needs to be a little smaller. So let's do the group focus mobile menu. It should be probably like 400 max. And so let's adjust this a little bit to 350 maybe. Okay, perfect. And so we should get a better responsive header this way. Okay, awesome. So we're making sure here that it is responsive for every size of the screens. Obviously, like if it's too small, we're not going to have any devices that are that small. But if you take into consideration the iPhone SE, for example, because that's really small. Like I don't know if people are using the iPhones SEs nowadays, but if you get the XR, for example, which is you know, relatively small screen, then I think we should be good. And then if we increase this, we should be able to see our responsive header, how it looks. Okay, good. So the last thing that I want to do here is to be able to see how we can switch from a logged out to a login header as well. Okay, so we need to place a few conditions and create a few elements that I'll show you. And so I'll try to do that for us right now. So the first thing that's very clear here that this appears when the user is logged in is the login and logout buttons, right? So this should disappear. So let's place a condition here first and say something like when the current user is logged out, so we should hide these buttons, and we got to make sure that the collapse when hidden is checked, right? So it collapses when it's hidden. And I'd like to place another group here that displays the user name and the user email and profile picture, for example, as well. So let's create a group inside this this other group here that contains these buttons and the hamburger menu. And inside this group D, let's do group you know, user profile, and let's rename this group login sign up buttons. And then inside this user profile, I want to have a text which should be equal to current user's name. I have actually not set up the database, but I'll do that really quickly just as an example. So the name should be a text. We already have the email, and then the profile image could be an image. Okay. And so let me create a user here just to show. So Lucas DeVito, let's do email lucas@nocodebuffs.com, and then the profile image. I'll just have this mock-up image that I've saved in my computer just as an example. So let's create this user, and then we can run as this user later on to see the results. But let's finish the design first. So this should be the current user's name. and we should fit this content to width. Okay, so actually the group here needs to fit the width of the content. Okay. And now let's try to place the user email as well. So let's do user email. I'm gonna do this a little bit smaller because emails tend to be a little longer. And so let's place an image here as well. That will be essentially my current user's profile image. Let's do process with imgix. That's to cover another video, but I'll just do resize to fit dimensions by cropping in case the image is not 1 by 1. Let's keep the aspect ratio fixed, and then width, let's do something like 30, for example, or 35. I think it's good. And I want to have a rounded image, so I'm gonna do roundness 100. I know I'm covering this really quickly, but it's just some like these things that I have memorized that I used on most of the apps that I've developed, and so certain numbers and certain approaches I've memorized, and so I'm just running this through you really quickly so I can show you how this looks at the end. Okay, and then you can slow down the video or to follow step by step if you'd like. So let's group the name and the email as a column container, and then this outer group here that contains the image and this other group with the text should be actually a row container. Let's actually fit this. Let's see what we need to fit the width here. Image group E. Okay, so let's fit with the image on the group E. Let's apply some column spacing here on this group here. Okay, perfect. Let's make this centered. Now this group user profile, it should actually be hidden, or it should actually be hidden, and it should only be displayed when the current user is logged in. Okay, and now we've set the same condition here for the buttons, and so we'll see how we can switch these buttons and the profile on and off basically when the user's logged out or logged in. Okay, so let's try to run as this user that I've created, and let's see if we can see the profile image, the name, the email, right? So this is what we see. And now we can also notice that we're seeing the menu items related to logged in users, right? We're not seeing blogs and contacts anymore. We're seeing profile, settings, and resources. And we're seeing the name and the email of this user. This condition here was not set up properly because we're still seeing these buttons and we're not seeing the image. So let's see what happened here. So these buttons, whenever the user is logged out, whenever the user is logged in, right, this should be hidden. So this takes care of this condition here. So now let's check why the user profile picture is not showing. So current user's profile image, right? I haven't set the image here, I think, or have I? I have. Let me try to set another one. So here's an image of myself. Okay, I think it should be working now. Maybe it was a different extension. Perfect. So when the user is logged in, we see the menu items here, and we see the user information. When we move to mobile, we're still seeing the user information here, but now we can see the menu, which also displays the logged in menu items. Okay, and so this should be a complete logged in, logged out header, which is responsive, right? And so the last thing that I want to show you guys is how to make this row sticky, right? So if we go to the index page and we place an element here, let me get a pre-made element from Bubble just to display. Let's do this one. Okay, so if we visualize this, let's get out from inspect. I will need to be able to place another group so we can scroll the page. Let's do another one as well. Okay, so you can see that as we scroll the page, this header here stays fixed on top and we're not able to see it. And so I want to be able to, whenever wherever my user is on the page, I want them to see the header, okay? And so to do this, we essentially need to place the header on a floating group. And it's really simple to do, right? So let me delete the header first and add a floating group to this page, okay? And so my floating group will float relative to the top and horizontally align to the left. That's fine. And so I will remove the fixed width so it extends all the way to the other side of the page. And then the fixed height could be 70, right? Because we've made our header have 70 pixels in height. And so it's fine if we have the floating group as 70 here as well, okay? So let's place the header inside the repeating group, and as we can see, it should now be floating on the page, right? So now as we scroll down, we can see that it floats on the page, right? And no matter where the user is on the page, they will be able to see this header. Now, the only thing here that we need to adjust is that since it's floating on the page, it is essentially overlapping this first group here that we have. And so we need to adjust this so we have essentially a margin between the first group and then the top of the page, right? So it doesn't overlap here. So let's see what we can do in relation to this. So what I like to do is to have all my elements on the page essentially grouped together on a row container or a column container. And so this group here that contains everything on my page will essentially be called group main or group body. It's something that shows that everything is inside it. It is the main group, right? And so the only thing that I need to do here is to place a top margin, okay, of 70, the same height as our header, which means that we're always gonna make sure that our header is not overlapping our first section of the page. And so we should have a perfectly laid out header, which is floating, sticky. It works for logged in and logged out users. It's also reusable, so we're able to place this header on every page of our app. And it's super efficient, because if we take a look again at this header, we have a handful of just a few elements, right? Not a ton of elements, and we have essentially this is the hamburger menu. No, we have like 2, 3, and then if we place workflows for the login and the sign up page, go to navigation, go to page index. Just as an example, we essentially have a reusable element that contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 5 workflows only, and it can be used on multiple pages of our app, and is essentially a very efficient way to build your headers on bubble.io. Okay, so this concludes our header video. I know it was a long video. I tried to really show you step by step on what I would do and all the little details that are necessary to think about whenever developing these headers. There's a lot of YouTube videos that are like 3 to 5 minutes and just show very superficially on how to actually build this component. But it's one of the most important components of our application. We need to get it right. It is, the front door of our application, and we need to make sure that our users can navigate our website on any device out there. Okay. Make sure that you join No Code Buffs, which is the community that I've launched for no code developers and solopreneurs. You can connect with a lot of people there. You can ask your own questions. If you're working alone, if you're working on a bubble project, if you want advice on a personal project that you're building, or even how to get clients, you can ask anything there related to no code, bubble, AI automation. I think I'll get into a lot more videos covering those topics on YouTube in the future. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback, please comment down below, and I'll see you in the community. Okay.